It's now been a week since patch 12.19 dropped, and it's safe to say there's quite a few new faces being played again. Let's see how this impacted our tier list and how those champions changed are actually performing since this patch. We're going to jump straight into it today, and start off as always with the top lane. We don't have any champions in the god tier this week, but we do have a fair few in that S tier, with Singed, Poppy, Shen, Aatrox, Sejuani, Mordekaiser, Darius, Olaf, Garen, Maokai, Nasus, and Ornn. Yes, Nasus and Ornn both move up to the S tier this week. Jax, Aurelia, and Lilia move from B to A, and Volibear moves up from C to B. Unfortunately though, Vayne does move down into the C tier, and Malphite and Alawi both move down from A to B. Nasus was easily one of the biggest winners in patch 12.19, and he's definitely the most popular and prioritised that he's been for quite some time. His win rate shot up by around 3% at the majority of lower ranks and only really falls off in those much higher elo brackets. Nasus just has so many great strengths right now, and we could probably expect some nerfs in the near future. His E allows him to deal with tanks by just melting down their resistances, his extra Q range is absurd, and his W slow and attack speed reduction is simply so troublesome for any carry. If you haven't tried top lane Nasus in this patch, you're missing out. Garen's buffs weren't as crazy as we'd expected them to be, but they did see him improve in his performance marginally. He does keep his place in the S tier for now, but let's see how he does look after a few more weeks. Garen is just a bit of a low elo demon, and not too many people will enjoy playing against him at the moment. He has a very simple kit, tons of damage, good sustain, laning presence, and a lot of carry potential too. Malphite's buffs didn't really help him out too much either though. I mean, it's only really a buff to his AP ratios, which unfortunately doesn't actually help his best build paths, which is, let's be honest, full brick wall tank. AP Malphite is a bit of a gimmick and super broken in Earth, but it's not the best way to play him in competitive games. This champion has a ton of bad matchups, but still some pretty good ones too. Either way though, Malphite is going to sit in that B tier for the time being. Don't forget, if you do want to see the tier lists in full for yourself, then click the link in the description below to head on over to our website. There you can also find individual champion pages with daily updated builds and runes, and lots of other video content too, like beginner guides and combo demonstrations. So you don't want to miss out. Let's move into the jungle now then, and in the god tier we still have Fiddlesticks. In the S tier we have Bel'Veth, Mordekaiser, Udyr, Amumu, Nunu, Volibear, Zac, and Ekko. Yes, Ekko, Udyr, and Nunu all move up to their S tier, and Rammus and Master Yi move down from S to A. Shyvana and Jarvan move down into the B tier, and Wukong falls off screen into that C tier. Ekko has been a surprising winner after patch 12.19, and although the buffs did look impressive, we didn't expect him to become this good this quickly. He has shot straight into that S tier, and he's winning a lot more games since that patch. His win rate went up by around 1.5% at the majority of ranks, and those junglers that enjoy him will definitely be playing a lot more of him at the moment. Ekko has insane one-shot potential and a massive ability to carry games by himself once he does get a bit fed. Whether it's diving backlines and deleting squishies, or lining up that huge 5-man ultimate to burst and turn around a teamfight. If you're a bit partial to some Ekko gameplay, now is the best time to pick him up again. Nunu's AP buffs last week haven't necessarily made him busted as an AP champion, but what they have done is encourage people to play him again, and it's reminded players just how good this champion actually is. His soar in popularity this week has justified his place back in the S tier, and his win rate has increased slightly too. Full tank or AP tank Nunu definitely is his best build path and the route he's having the most success with. So now those people spamming AP Nunu mid have calmed down a bit, you can actually see just how well this champion's doing. Definitely want to be careful of when queuing right now, as a good Nunu is hard to beat. Udyr's buffs were aimed at bringing him a bit more up to speed in the top lane, but honestly, he's just way better and very good in the jungle again right now. His win rate went up by around 1% and now it's sitting at an incredibly healthy 52% plus. Udyr still has a very high ban rate too, so you can obviously tell that people have a mutual understanding of how strong this champion can be. Ever since that rework, like so many others that shared similar changes, he's been undeniably stronger. Rek'Sai got a nerf to her base damage last week, and it hasn't made as much difference as you'd think. She did lose a bit of success, but she still got the same strengths of dominating the early game and ending games before 25 minutes. She's definitely a lot more popular and successful at higher ranks, but she's not doing too bad in low elo too. If you do main Rek'Sai, don't worry, because your champion is still more than viable and these nerfs shouldn't have put you off at all. Master Yi did take a significant drop to his win rate this week. He's finally come down to a slightly more tolerable win rate, and he's no longer as crazy strong as he has been recently, especially at lower ranks. He's still fantastic though in the right games against comps with low crowd control and alongside enchanters too, but he is now a bit more situational rather than just insta-lock and win anyway. His ban rate is still very high as people just cannot stand playing against him, which I do kind of understand though, because a fed Yi is a pretty scary one. Let's move down into that mid lane now, and in the god tier we just have Swain and Vex. In the S tier though, we have Diana, Zed, Seraphine, Akshan and Victor. Fizz, Ekko and Aurelia all move up to the A tier, Ziggs, Varus, Annie and Talon all move down from A to B. Vladimir also moves out of the S tier into A, and Akali, Yone and Twisted Fate unfortunately move down into the C tier. These champions still do have their place though, and I'm sure you've all been slaughtered by a fed Akali now and again, but they are consistent enough in low elo and just aren't winning that many games at the moment to stay in B+. As you probably have noticed, we've popped the new Syndra into the B tier. Her win rate has improved by around 1% after her rework, but to be honest, people are still figuring out how to actually play her. She is now all about her passive and her scaling. She is a much lower threat in lane than she was previously, and now she plays kind of similar to those other scaling controlling mid laners like Azir and Victor. Seriously though, Syndra's damage in the late game is absolute madness now. You can one-shot tanks with basic abilities, you can stun entire teams so much easier with that massive radius on your E, and it's just so much more fun to play with here. Now we aren't going to put her in those top tiers as her win rate isn't too hot just yet, but do not underestimate how strong Syndra can be since those changes. Fizz has moved up to the A tier this week, and what a difference one small buff can make. Fizz's win rate has improved by around 2%, which is pretty insane, and we were considering putting him into the S tier, but as a champion he's still a bit too situational and matchup dependent to warrant that just yet. Now we might change our minds over the next few weeks, but for the time being he's going to stay in the A tier. This guy is much better now though, so if you do get counterpicked by it, be ready to learn this lesson very quickly. Some Ryze buffs were long overdue, and as we all know, this champion doesn't really exist at the moment. He was so abusable in pro play for a while, so Riot just had to keep nerfing him, and unfortunately now he's just nowhere to be found. The buffs did actually help him out by around 1%, however his stats are just still way too low to include in our tier list. If you are one of those weird players that loves playing champions that no one else does though, I'm sure there is still a way to make Ryze work, but for the majority, he's just not good enough. Let's move down into the bot lane and take a look at those AD carries, and not too much is going to change here. In the God tier we have Misfortune and Seraphine, and in the S tier we have Jhin and Tristana. Vayne, Ezreal and Caitlyn all moved down from A to B. We moved Jinx and Kai'Sa up to the A tier last week, and they have without a doubt been a lot more successful this patch. Jinx's win rate saw an increase of around 1.5%, which is a pretty massive improvement, especially for an AD carry. She's still a very situational ADC to play. You can't really blind pick her too confidently too often, as if you do get shut down in the early game, you're never really going to be able to pop off. However, if you do get that right matchup and the right draft, she's actually got potential to be one of the better AD carries in the game to play. She has fantastic long range, fantastic cleanup potential, and she could be a real threat if you do leave her unchecked. Kai'Sa's win rate hasn't actually changed as much though since the patch, but that's largely due to so many people still building her pretty suboptimally. If you know what you're doing on Kai'Sa and you get through that lane phase even or ahead, you can pull off some pretty crazy plays with this champion. She has a brilliant kit to outplay her enemies, and if you do get fed in lane, you're going to have some real fun zooming around the map and one-shotting people down with your passive. She isn't quite strong enough to be in that S tier, but she definitely is more than comfortable in the A tier this week. Again though, like a lot of champions in the game, a lot of AD carries especially, be really mindful of those matchups. Kai'Sa isn't the best champion in the lane phase, and if you do get pushed in and put behind early game, you may never actually scale and upgrade and evolve those abilities. Well, let's finish off this video with those supports, and only one real change from our predictions last week, which is Blitzcrank being absolutely busted. He's going to shoot straight up into that God tier alongside Janna, and then in the S tier we also have Soraka, Renata Glask, Amumu, Sona, Nami and Cilia. Yes, Blitzcrank is absolutely bonkers this week, and although the buffs were aimed at making him an off-meta pick in the top lane and the jungle, it just made him even better in that support role. His win rate is an absolute joke at the moment, leaning around 54%, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down, hence his position in that God tier. His ban rate and his pick rate have also gone through the roof, and if you aren't a fan of playing it, then you should definitely expect to play against it every single time it's open. Now he's always had that pick potential and hook threat, but now he also just offers a ton of damage in those early fights too. His W is a bit too overtuned now, and if he does get fed, not only is he a tanky nightmare to beat, but he also contributes massively with some extra damage too. As we expected, the Sona buffs have boosted her straight back into those top tiers as a support. She's back up there with the best of the enchanters, and her healing, scaling and utility are as good as ever. Her win rate improved by nearly 1.5% at most ranks, and now she has a very impressive 52.5 to 53% win rate. Sona really fulfills that playstyle of just dishing out a ton of consistent and relentless healing, damage and movement. Then she's also got that ultimate, which is really fun to use and allows her to peel or engage and really make her mark on those teamfights. As long as you don't int too hard in the early game, Sona is a top choice to play in that support role this patch. Well, that's going to wrap up our updated tier list video for low elo in patch 12.19. We hope you enjoyed it, and don't forget to check out our website and our desktop app by clicking the link in the description. If you aren't using all of our free content, then you are seriously missing out. That's all from us here at Mobalytics, and we're going to see you in the next video. As always, take care.